All right, we got about a minute to go. Let's get the pre-stream microphone check out of the way. Let me know if you can hear me across the various chats, including YouTube. If you're over there on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button and you can jump right into chat and let me know if the microphone levels sound okay. And we're going to get started in a little less than a minute here. Okay, it looks like sound is coming through good. And I see, thank you, Cheryl. Looks like YouTube sound is coming through good as well. Let's go ahead and get the music under control here, and we're going to get rolling. Let's turn that down. And we're going to jump right into this in a moment. Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is Friday, October 20th, 2023, and we are going to do a little bit of live analysis on Bitcoin here. And we will also take a look at Dixie, gold, and traditional markets coming into the close of day today here as I adjust in my chair, excuse me. Let's go ahead and start with Bitcoin. We did get the move up that I spoke about in yesterday's Bitcoin in 60 seconds video for today's price action. And, it met all the criteria. So let's go ahead and just quickly review what that analysis was. We have Bitcoin, trading and closing candles above this weekly here at 28K. And it needed to take out this wick high over here at 28.6, really on, a medium-term time frame below the daily, an hourly to 4 hour, preferably a 4 hour. We did see that. To get the push to 29K and then subsequently 29.45 as a retest, and then above there to retest the wick high here at $30,000 and try to make a push for the weekly here at 30,300. And we've hit all those targets to the upside now in today's candle. Unless we see, a big pump after traditional market close today in the post-market hours, I'm not really looking for Bitcoin to run its current wick high now coming in at 30,250 or 30,248 here on Coinbase Spot. But I would be looking generally for a retest of this weekly at 30,300. If Bitcoin can close above this 29.45 again. Now that can be on a daily or medium-term time frame below a daily, like a 4 or 6 or a 12 hour. And in this case, we can see that Bitcoin actually ran this lower high over here. This was a higher high on a wick, technically a higher high on a close actually. But this high here, basically that we were looking for a retest of 30,300 up here. This wick over here came in at that 30,222. And we have swung that particular high, and that was really the last high of this range before the breakdown. And, once we see a reclaim of 30,300, I would expect price to eventually work its way up to this big level, this daily, weekly, and monthly resistance overhead at 31.8. We had previously only dipped one candle in there. And then above there, the dailies at 32.4. And if we scroll this chart a little bit here, we can see that we have a big area of interest above that 32.4 region at the weekly and monthly there at around $35,000. So that would be the next big area to the upside. Now, the criteria for this move to get continuation is going to become this wick high at $30,000 again. So if we do see $30,000 being reclaimed, then I would look for a run of this current wick high to that weekly at 30,300 and an attempt at a higher time frame closure above there. And if we do see something like a daily or higher term time frame close above there, then I would definitely be looking for that 31.8 to 32.4 level overhead. Now, if Bitcoin does drop this last higher low here at this 28K weekly support, we still need to be aware of where the basis band is coming in. I do suspect this is going to quickly accelerate into this support area. It's currently coming in at 27,750 to 27,800 or so. And below there, the daily at 27.5 to that monthly at 27.2. And then we have the lower first at 27K. Back below there, and I would be looking for a quick move down to the weekly at 26,750 and possibly a retest of these lows at 26.5. Below there, of course, I'd be looking for things to round trip right back to this weekly and monthly level at 26K and any breakdowns below there. And I'd be looking for the daily down here at 25.1 to 24.8, possibly more on any breakdown below there. But as it currently stands, price is pretty far away from there and looking pretty good. We can see that on Stochastic momentum, it is pointed to the upside here, and the momentum pivot is 27,500, and that is, of course, the daily support just below the daily basis band that we were looking at around that 27,750 or so. So 27.5, big area. I would argue that the bigger area is actually the weekly at 28K. So bulls want to see 28K hold. That is where the now most recent higher low is going to be, right there on the weekly at 28,083 bucks or so, just above that weekly support, which to be fair is coming in at 28,070 bucks. So keep that in mind. Let's jump over to the chart that is not the Bitcoin in 60 seconds chart with the support and resistance, but rather the weekly swing chart that we have here. So this is Coinbase Spot. And I do want to point out that this area here that Bitcoin put in a low already. And based on swing patterns, I wanted to see a breakout and close above 28,184. Take out that wick high to really solidify this area as a major low again. So we have, higher lows on the way up. We technically, we do have the weekly here closing on a slight lower low, but higher lows on the wick. So that swing area I do feel is complete the criteria would be closing Sunday's candle on spot above 28,184. So let's not actually get too far ahead of ourselves just yet. So in this case, from the swing chart perspective, we can see that from the wicks, we have a wick low area, a lower high put in, and then another higher low. So swing chart's saying, this is a higher low coming off of this lower, another higher low to be quite honest, but lower low and a close. In this case, swing chart is a little ahead of what I like for confluence. So my criteria coming into this weekend's close is going to be 28,184 on the weekly. If we see that closed above, then on a closing basis, this is a major low set, and I'd be looking for the highs to get ran again. So we've already run this high here at 30,222. Next high would be 31,050 bucks, and then the actual high up here at 31,862 to basically that 32.4 area. And then we start looking for more. That's where we can start looking for this, that's that 32.4 area. And then there's a wick over here at around 33, and then slightly above there, 34,300. Now we do have a set of lows just above there at 37,161. What I would call out though is the close over here. This close is coming in at around 36. And on the monthly, that's that $35,000 level as well. Actually, let's look here. This is going to be 36,275. There is a weekly slightly lower than that area right there. 34,758 is this weekly over here. What is this weekly coming in at? This is 32. So that actually is inside of this wick here at that 32.4. So yeah, it's really around the monthly rather, at 35,000. So that's where we start looking to this low on the monthly from June of 2021 on a close. Wicks are already well tested in this area. We're really looking for this monthly wick at around 30,933. So basically $33,000. That has confluence with the weekly as well. Above that $35,000 monthly, we're looking at that 38,500 area. And then we can start looking at the high side, which is coming in at 45 to 48,000 up there. I don't, I don't have an opinion as to, the availability of those targets until we actually see at least that 31.8 recovered to that 32.4 overhead. So that's going to be the big stuff to watch for. Of course, to the downside, as long as things are above this 24,750 to 24,900, looking good for further upside. Quite honestly, I don't see any reason to be really looking any further down as long as Bitcoin is trading above those levels. Now, when looking at the Bollinger Bands, we can see that Bitcoin is doing quite well actually on the Bollinger Bands here. We had that lower. We had the lower second and third expansion to the downside, the retest of the lower second on the lows, making lower lows on divergence, and a lower second tap after contraction. So expansion to contraction, tap on the lower second, run up, swing the midline, start impulsing through the upper second and third, hold the lower first. Absolutely beautiful. This is what I love to see with Bollinger Bands. It's one of my favorite setups. I know I call it out a lot, but that impulse through an area and then continuation of trend, bouncing off that basis to lower first area. Whether it's to the upside or if we're going to see a downside move. We get the expansion down, come back, swing in and around that basis to upper first in this case, and then come down and tap on in this case, lower second and third area. Now, Bitcoin, if it does continue to close above the upper second standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands here, what we are looking for is continued expansion to the upside at minimum to go test the wick highs at 30,000 to the current wick high at 30,250, and that weekly, of course, at 30,300. Now, the upper second standard deviation is coming in at 29,150 or so. I call it 29,1 to 150. Now, if we do see Bitcoin close above there, we will see BBWP continue to get dramatic expansion here on the daily. And of course, that should lead into the 2-day and 3-day and so on. So let's go ahead and look at the 2-day as we do have a fresh closure here. So this was closed coming into today's candle. So we have a 2-day open here that opened at 28,734. We had the previous candle close come above the upper second standard deviation on the 2-day. And now the upper second standard deviation has moved up to, in this case, we'll just call it $29,000. It's like, little more than $100. It's like $105 under there, but you can just call it 29K. If we see a 2-day closure, that would be this weekend with Saturday's candle coming into the weekly close on Sunday. If you see it close above there, then we're looking at some more aggressive expansion. It's already a 36 over 24 on BBWP. And the momentum pivot is showing that it wants to shift to the upside. We do have an initial cross back up. This is not a strong signal. This is the KVDB advanced stoke from app.crowntrading.net. You can get free stokes. There's plenty with pivots out there as well. I just like supporting the developers over there. I don't have any financial relationship with them. I'm not like a spokesperson for them. Just really like their developers. And of course, Crown. Crown's a great guy. Now, the momentum pivot has updated to $28,000. So another big reason to be looking at that weekly to the downside at 28K as an area that needs to hold up. Now, 28K, obviously that weekly, that would not only turn the stoke on the 2-day back down, but it would also, of course, endanger or start to get very close to that daily pivot for the daily, which I do suspect is going to update to somewhere around $28,000 by end of day today. And I will update you guys as to what that momentum pivot is later today in the Bitcoin in 60 seconds video. Now, this is going to be pretty interesting as we lead into the 3-day. 3-day is going to be closing with Saturday's candles. So, coming into the Sunday close, there are some, time frames below the weekly to pay attention to, and it's going to be the 2-day, the 3-day, and we're going to see that there's, I believe, one more. But the 3-day closed above the upper second, and the prior 3-day did. And now we see that the upper second is at around, in this case, 28,690, 28,690, and Bitcoin threatening to close above there again. If Bitcoin can basically, stick around the $29,000 region, then we would see, or even 28.8 region to the downside, which we'll look at in lower term timeframes. Then I would expect this to close above there, thus kicking off more aggressive expansion on the 3-day as well. We're looking at a 14/10. I like to see that a little bit higher. This is just the etchings of expansion, so sometimes it can take time. And again, it's a 3-day, so give it room. Things can play on the time frames below there to the downside and still be very, very bullish on the 3-day. But of course, if it does start failing below that area, we do need to pay attention to that upper first, as that is right where the daily basis band is currently coming in, around that 27.7 region, 27.8 region. The basis band, of course, coming in just above the prior lows there at 26.5, now has updated to 26.800 or so. And we can see that the momentum pivot is at 29,200. So if we do see a close on the 3-day above 29,200, Bitcoin's currently trading about $300 above there right now, then of course that would get continued upside momentum on Stoke here. And we can see that the 4-day is playing out that bullish divergence off the last low at 26,500 as well. Actually, this was lower than 26,500. No, it's 26,500. My apologies. Looking good on any closures above 27,300. The 4-day is going to close on Monday. So this will be something that we can talk about on Monday's live stream. When looking at the 5-day, I should note, you can see pretty clearly where the upper second is here, and Bitcoin has played basically from the lower second standard deviation to the upper second standard deviation, which is coming in there at 29,800. This is likely going to update to around the current high at 30,000 to that 30,200 to 300 area if Bitcoin closes the next 4-day candle above the upper first, because we are starting to see expansion on the 4-day here. And that upper first is at 28,500. That is right there at that 28,426, that 28,6 being that wick that I had mentioned should kick off further upside in Bitcoin's price action. And it's pretty much playing exactly how we expected. This is not a very big surprise, to be quite honest. And if you guys are surprised, you need to let me know what part you're not understanding about the analysis, or if you're looking at the charts and you're seeing something different, what are you seeing that's leading you to believe that things aren't going to go that way, right? Um, and I do want to impress upon you that you should always look at the higher term time frames and then weave that into your lower term time frame analysis, because the higher term time frames can sometimes allow for very large price movements and still remain bullish, even if those lower term time frames are bearish. In this case, we're looking at the 5-day, which is going to close with, guess what? The weekly candle. And this is actually what I want to see. This is still a range play. We have Bitcoin playing from the upper second standard deviation down into the lower first and second standard area or zone, and then a move to the upper first and upper second area. So this gives us, pretty good bias as to what the next 5-day will hold if we do see it close above the upper first. In this case, that is at 29,100, and the upper second is up there at 30,500 to 600. So if we do see that upper first close below, not a great look, especially in this current 5-day candle, but the basis, would still give me the bias that it's going to play in the strong half. And that is at 27,640. The lower first is still down there at around that 26,100. That's that prior low down there. Now we have a higher low structure. So we have higher high, higher low structure. Closing above the upper first would give me the bias that things are going to test up into that 30,000 area above that weekly at 30,300, or at least to that 30,300 weekly where it just came up $50 shy on this wick. At least a retest of that area, and then come back to it later, possibly looking for 30,500 to take this high, maybe on a close at that 30,200 to 300 area, and then testing the close opens up here at, we've got 30,300 on the 5-day and weekly, and then above there on the closes we've got 30,700 just above this upper second, and then of course the wicks coming in at like 31 and 31 4 to 5, and then the 31.8 wick high here. Looks very good still on Stoke momentum on the 5-day here. There is a bit of a meme mean regression line or trend line, if you like, but it still would have room, even if it's going to play out that meme trend line retest. It would still have pressure up basically to go test those highs, and then if it were to break out of those highs, that's most likely where you see a trend line like this get broken. And the reason why you can use trend lines on a regular Stoke, not a Stoke RSI. Remember, Stoke RSI is just measuring the velocity or how fast RSI is moving, whereas a regular Stoke is measuring close over close price momentum. And the reason why you can use, and this is really the only place that I will use trend lines. In most cases, you see sometimes I will use them on price action, but it's very, very rare, and it's usually just as a humorous thing. But in this case, the reason why you can use trend lines and trend line regressions, especially on a regular Stoke, is because it is reading that close over close momentum and breaking out of a trend line like this. This tells me right now that if this is going to continue up on closes above 26, 400 basically. So the prior low at 26.5, as long as his price is above there in this next 5-day period, meaning until Sunday, and then at the open of the new period, we're likely to see this in and around this trend line, thus giving us the bias that things are probably closing above the upper first on the 5-day and likely to test this trend line regression. And if it breaks out above there, we're likely seeing the highs and higher of this range above. So, keep that in mind. I do think that they are pretty valuable on these time frames, especially higher term time frame trend line regression. The weekly here, we can see that Bitcoin again on the bands has a big range between the upper second and lower second standard deviations, and we've seen Bitcoin now test into that upper first. So 1 standard deviation away from the basis, which is currently coming in at $28,000. Again, this is likely to come in, 28.2, 28.4 when it does close, as long as Bitcoin is closing above it and closer to that upper first. Now, I want you to note that BBWP is 1.5% over 5%. So this, we're not quite looking for expansion. It was just getting this contraction. And if we do see the upper first closed above, and that's at 29,800 on the weekly, then we will see expansion of BBWP, but it's likely to remain below the simple moving average. So let me show you that on the BBWP chart itself. And of course, this is a free indicator by the Caretaker, another veteran developer from the Crown community. What you're looking for is expansion above the upper first. That will give you the etchings of expansion, right? It needs to get up over the moving average here. And that's going to likely happen and would happen just mathematically if it is above the upper first standard deviation on a close. And then close over close, you want to see, not only do you want to see expansion, which means that Bitcoin would be moving to the upper second in this case. That's the only way it's going to happen from where Bitcoin is positioned right now, as you would see BBWP, the multicolored line, start to move up. And then close over close, we see the moving average catch up to it, and then it has to turn up. And the only way that that's going to continue to expand or move up, BBWP in this case, is closes above the upper first that then continue to push towards the upper second. And then close over close, we wait for that moving average to turn and point up with BBWP. So that would likely mean Bitcoin playing around the highs. That's where we'd start to see the etchings of expansion and then expansion confirmation. From there, we're looking for, Bitcoin to eventually break and close above the upper second standard deviation to get aggressive expansion, and or Bitcoin can continue closing above the upper first and pushing that upper second standard deviation to the upside. So it will still stay 2 standard deviations away from the basis. That means that Bitcoin is above the basis. And to maintain an expansive posture on BBWP, it has to be about 1 standard deviation away and keep grinding up against that upper second standard deviation. And that's where we would see expansion and then confirmation and then a slower expansion to the upside. Likely that would usually that means that Bitcoin's going to see like a structured move. In this case, that would be a structured move to the upside. More aggressive moves are going to come on any closures above the upper second standard deviation. So that's like what we saw back here. Close above, and then mean revert back to the upper first, test into the upper second, down to the basis, and then shotgun right back up to the upper second, retest it, and then try to hold that upper first, come back down to the basis area, work its way there, swing it, and then test to the upper second, hold the upper first, swing to the basis, test the lower second. Well, now it's in a transition period again on the weekly. So we don't have a pinch on the Bollinger Bands just yet. We have a range set up. So, what I would be looking for is for expansion to come on closures above that upper second, and or it starts to grind that upper first, upper second area, still using that basis to lower first as a basing point for the bulls. Below there, then it becomes bearish to go retest the lows. But from the look of it right now, I'm not necessarily looking for a shotgun to the upside, but if we do see things start to rip through some of the highs here and get a close above that upper second, we could see stray wicks coming into that upper third and beyond. It's likely that it would get sold off pretty hard, and then it finds its footing again and then tries to get an expansive, constructive, expansive move to the upside. But for right now, it's still just around the upper first, and it has not. We don't have the close yet, and it has not closed above it. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and look at CME, because it is going to close the weekly here in a few hours, 3 hours to be exact. So in this case, I'm looking at this as, it has the potential in the next few hours, if it's going to try for that upper first, and gets a close above there, you're going to know on any closes above 29,925. I would give it a little bit more room because it does move around a bit. I would say 29,950 to $30,000. If we see a close on the weekly above there, then we are looking at this upper area, the upper first to the upper second becoming the most likely mathematical area for Bitcoin to play in. And of course, this is already starting to account for the highs there at the upper second. It's coming in at 31,760. So basically the highs at 31.8. So that would all be fair game. If it does lose that upper first and or doesn't close above it, we're still looking for it to play in the strong half up here. But there could be pullbacks down to 29K here, or 28,950 on the wick there, to the basis at around $28,000. So I would just keep that in mind. So 28,950, 29K to $28,000, and again, that's the big weekly area on spot that we need to pay attention to. So an expansion, likely, the setup's there, same kind of setup. It's not likely until we see a close above the upper first at minimum. We will see the etchings of expansion because it is likely to close above that basis band, and it is expanded away. But realistically, we're not going to see things get rolling until we see a closure above that upper first. So keep that in mind. Let's go back to the daily here. Let's go ahead and look at Dixie. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There's some confluent areas that I wanted to talk about. So we are going to go to the support and resistance chart here on the Bitcoin in 60 seconds chart real quick. And we are going to pull a fib. So we previously had a fib from the move here to 30,000 and just kind of gauging pullback areas, right? And we could see that Bitcoin came back to the 618, held it on that little spike low, and then now has hit the 100% of that move. If we extend this pull to the current wick high just below that weekly, we can see that the 618 is coming in there at 28,200, and that was momentum pivot on a few of those time frames that we were looking at. So keep an eye on that 618. The 50% now is coming in just above that daily support at 27.5, almost at 27.6. It's 27,574. So, but to the upside, what I wanted to note was where we have some of the other fibs coming in. Now, it's going to be a little tough to see, so I'm going to kind of get in close here and expand this out. But right below the monthly, weekly, and the daily, weekly, and monthly level at 31.8, we have the 1272 coming in at 31.7. And then just above the daily above it, we have that 32.4 area. Well, we've got the 1414 coming in there at 32,462. And then if we scroll up here, we can see that the 1618 is coming in there at 33.5. The 1786 is coming in at 34,450, just below this weekly at 34,760. And then the 1888 basically like bang on $35,000. It's like $2.98 under there. It's coming in at 34,997.02, just below that monthly at 35,000 rather, and $60. So the 1888, highly respected. I commonly refer to that as the Torque's 1888. That's TORQUE, Torque. A long-standing member of the community, highly respected, and brought that particular fib to our attention. And you might even note that I use the other side of that, a 191, which I found to be very helpful. When looking at the weekly, from swing high to swing low, we can see that, it should be the 618 should be getting closed above. So from the move down, we've got stalling. Sorry. So from the move up to the last low, even, we see that the 618 is where you want to see the weekly close above at around 29.2. And then the 786 here is at 30,372. So right above that weekly there. 888's coming in at 31.1. Really just cutting right across this wick high over here on the weekly. And then, of course, the 100%. And then we have a little bit of confluence at that 33,755, 1414 at 34,744, and the 1618 for this particular pull would be up there at the $36,000. So a little less relevant for the extensions. I would take the extensions off of the current move as it builds, and or wherever we see a high put in. But for mean reversion plays, this would be the inverted. This would be your 1, and this would be your 0. The 618 would just be your 382. It's just easier for me to show it to you like this. This is your 618 at 29.2, so keep an eye on that. If you'd like to take the prior move up that this is kind of playing in between anyway, it doesn't change things much. The 618 is simply $50 lower. And the 188, or I'm sorry, the 888 over here is, pretty much still bang on that wick high over there from April. So did want to throw some fibs on for confluence. 28.2 to 300 again is going to be the 50% now. So very, very nice move up. We'll see if it can sustain. Let's go ahead and take a look at Dixie. Dixie, still kind of painting a little bit of a high side structure, but as I had mentioned, coming into this week's price action for Dixie, still has the highs available to it. And in this case, we can see that 107.17 is the weekly pivot for momentum. So it is headed down on any closes below that 107.17. It's about $1 under. In fact, it's almost exactly $1 under right now where it's trading. And we can see that it is using this this little yellow zone here at around that 105.65 to 105.90 as a basing area. Let's go ahead and get rid of the swing chart. We don't necessarily need that right now. We can see contraction here on the daily. So Bollinger Bands had nice expansion up. Now that Dixie has come back down and broke below the basis, found the upper first as resistance. It has fallen back below the basis band again, but it is just a consolidation at this point. So to kind of gauge the next move, we can look at momentum on the daily. We did see a cross to the upside here, and the pivot's at 106.60. So unless it closes above 106.60 today, this will cross back to the downside. When looking at something like a 2-day, it's still headed down below 106.70. We see that it is below the upper first, which brings into play that basis, which is going to move up likely into the lows today, somewhere around that 105.66 to this. It's already at the wick low here at 105.53. It's likely to move up into this yellow zone, basically 105.65 to that 105.80 to 90 region. And that's, fair game on the next move from the 2-day perspective, closing below that upper first. And then we're likely to see that lower first move into the 104.69 area. Nice. And if it does move into that area, we kind of have a zone down here at 105 to that 104.69. The 3-day also closing today on Dixie. It is still above the upper first, so this would be my kind of point of contention. If it does close open below it and remain below it, then that does bring that basis at 104.69 into play to that 105 support. But if it closes above it and then regains it by the next closure, then the highs are going to get ran again around that 107.60 to, basically 108, maybe even more. But as it stands right now, that is kind of the time frame that I'm going to be watching in between the weekly and daily. So the next 3-day close, of course, it's closing today. So when this opens on Sunday, we're going to get a clean 3-day time frame. Sometimes when it falls on like opened on a Thursday and then it's not going to actually, close its candle until the Monday close or Tuesday close or whatever it might be, right? In this case, we're going to have it close with the Friday candle or the weekly candle. It's going to open on Sunday, which is Monday's candle. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll be able to gauge kind of where this closes around the upper first. This is going to be the important one to watch, in my opinion. So, and you'll see that, it is headed to the downside and on any closures below 106.93 currently. That is going to update at close today. It's probably going to come in line, with that 106.70 region that we're seeing on the 2-day, if I had to guess. Now, that is purely a guess. It can get a little, the math can get a little goofy because of the wicks sometimes. So we'll just have to see what that opens at on Sunday. The 4-day, we're looking at the same kind of thing. If it is above the upper first is likely to move into wherever the open is at the close of this candle. Now, this just opened. So that 3-day, again, is the one that's going to give us, the outlook, in my opinion, for what's going to happen on the 4-day, 5-day, and weekly. And in this case, the upper first is there at 106.11. So it is something worth watching. The 3-day, though, is far more important, in my opinion, at this particular moment. Pivot is at 107.24. On the 4-day, the 5 days also closing with today's weekly and daily and 3-day and 2-day. In this case, we are looking at, the upper first coming into that low side support. So that is going to be right around that 105.65 to 105.80 to 90 region. And this might, because of the steep angle, this might actually get to, possibly 105.90. Again, this is something that we'll check on in Monday's live stream as well. This is really going to start painting the picture for me and my analysis going forward with Dixie on some of the longer term timeframes, depending on where today closes into that Monday open. So don't miss the Monday live stream. I will spend quite a bit more time on Dixie because we are kind of at an inflection point, I believe, for either continuation to keep testing higher or for a longer form pullback. And don't confuse pullback with bearish or bullishness. It's just a pullback until proven otherwise, if it does happen further. Right now, it's just a consolidation. So weekly, of course, upper first going to move into the same area as that 5-day. So 107.17 on the weekly. We've got 107.17. So we have parity on the weekly and 5-day. And we're going to get clean close opens on the 5-day, not the 4-day, but the 5-day, 3-day, and 2-day, which is something that I like a lot. I like when there's clean close opens there, where they close with the weekly candle, and then you get those perfect time frames lining up for the following week. Now, gold hit our targets. Let's go ahead and take a look at gold. Gold hit our 1780 to 90 target. It actually reached for the 2K target as well. I wasn't paying attention to that. Was that earlier today? That was earlier today. Nice. Well, we hit our 1980 target here after hitting the Wednesday target, which was the upper second around 1960. We hit the 1980 region. That was the next big area. And then above there, I had mentioned, it's likely to run, 1990 to 2K. And it, stopped $3, a little less than $3 short of $2,000. Now, a close today above the upper second is going to look pretty good, but I do think, it's even if it throws some more spikes at 2,000, maybe even above. Let's see if it gets if it can get a closure above 1987, then I'd be looking for immediate continuation. But this is a fairly long run up. It's likely to cool down and maybe get some lower term time frame pullbacks. Still pretty damn bullish above that upper first at around that 1930 region. And a reclaim of these highs over here. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then we're going to look at the weekly in just a minute. Above 1940, looking great. Above 1930. It's looking fine to continue this move, test higher, and just keep the bull train rolling. 1965 is the momentum pivot. It's likely to chase pretty close to price action, but much in what we saw rather with Dixie, gold can kind of do the same thing where we got to see in trend bearish divergences, all that kind of stuff. So when looking at BBWP, it just keeps re-expanding because of where it is. It expanded, from the lows and then just ran the other way. So once it hit the mean, it dipped and then re-expanded after it started closing above the upper first. And then, of course, the upper second is giving it more aggressive expansion. But in this case, I'm not really looking for this thing to come back down until we see in-trend bearish divergence. That there's not even a chance of that right now. So I do suspect that 2K is likely to get ran again after some lower term time frame pullbacks. Even if there's a wider pullback down to like 1932, I would look at that as an opportunity, as long as it's sticking above around 1900, which, pretty far away. But we can see that gold has been moving very quickly. Anyway, the weekly, oh my God, this weekly is beautiful. What a beauty. I mean, I mentioned this on the weekly prior. This is beautiful. Like, this is just a beautiful bull candle. Takes out this last little consolidation high or whatever you want to call it. And it was really about breaking above that 1940, 1950 region. And then it's blast off upper second standard deviation. So that's sitting right there at 2K. We have talked about this. Moves below the lower second and third, runs right the other way, finds its resistance. It's the upper first to the upper second if it can get past the basis, and it did get past the basis. So the big areas were the upper first, and that's at that 1960 and then 2000 at the upper second. Now, if it, of course, closes above 1960 by close today, which is looking likely, then I would expect it to continue to run somewhere around the upper second. And of course, this will expand to the upside. You can see the Bollinger Bands getting some nice upside expansion going on right now anyway. And that's likely to lead to somewhere around, 2007 to 2016, somewhere up there. And we come back to it at open on Sunday. Looking beautiful, man. What a beautiful, beautiful move. 1877's the weekly pivot. So this is looking very good. And closes above the prior closes here at that 1940 to 50 region, 1960, I'm sorry. So it was 1950 to 60, or, just right around that upper first standard deviation, taking out these last two lower high areas on a close. If it can push by end of today and get above 1987, that would look even better for continuation immediately. But a reclaim of this low over here would also do it to around 1982. So something to note. Still very bullish, but in terms of like immediate continuation, I'd be looking at that 1982 to the wick high at 1987 coming into the last 3 hours of the session today. So I would just kind of gauge where it closes, and then it could see a pop up in the lower term time frames coming into the open on Sunday. So, man, what a beautiful, beautiful chart in terms of this particular move. And then it would also be a trend break. So, beautiful, beautiful stuff. That doesn't mean that it won't come back down for higher lows. So don't get too scared. This thing could run all the way to its highs and past it, but it's still got to come down for a higher low on the weekly. So don't get FOMO. Don't get FOMO. If you missed this move, don't worry. Just hunt the higher low whenever it does come. And again, it could run $2,000. It could run to $3,000, $4,000. It's still got to come down for a higher low, and that's where you want to catch it. If you missed this particular low on the lower term time frames, we are talking weekly here. Let's go ahead and look at traditional markets. I do think they're stepping back a bit here. They are. Again, fair game on the lows here is that lower second. We talked about this already. 33 to the actual wick low, even at 32,850 or so for Dow. Weekly is going to start showing that it's going to want to pivot here soon. And I do think, like I had mentioned earlier in the month, back half of the month is where we're looking for this weekly to possibly pivot. And that would mean that, it can still play on the lows and possibly even lower. But in this case, we're looking at 34,254, and this is going to close today. And we'll see what this updates to, but it should be in some bear, in the oversold zone pretty soon here. 33,200, so it's still a ways away on the weekly. Let's look at that daily. Daily had a really big run up. Now, what the setup would be for the bulls here is you can see that momentum is pretty high in the range here. So it's quite a bit higher than it was even, on this last lower high up there. But if it can come down and hold the lower second area, it's looking like it's probably going to close below this lower first at 33,277, it looks like. It's on the screen, like pretty far away from me. I've got a bunch of monitors over here. Then lower second comes into play, which is around the closing low at 33,000. And possibly even a retest of the lows or a swing of the lows at 32,850, meaning that it could swing lower, maybe even close lower, maybe even get expansion a little bit more, because it did get some contraction on this mean reversion back to the upper first. That's, impulse down, bounce off the lower second to the upper first, find resistance, come right back down, and then re-expand to the downside. That's a very real possibility. But if it's going to be bullish for a reversal setup, then you'll see it come down and put in a higher low and or equal lows, right? And then we'll start to see this momentum oscillator, this being Stochastic momentum, come down and get something like this where it resets. And you want to see it, holding somewhere around the edge of the bearish control zone and or a quick dip in and then out. Okay. So that would be the bullish scenario. The bearish scenario is that it comes down all the way with continuation, which would be likely closing below the lower second, re-expanding past these lows. So that's the other scenario. That would be the more bearish scenario or the continuation scenario. But I would beware of a possible reversal off of these lows. It's got the setup for it. So just understand that 33,780 is going to be the momentum pivot. This is probably going to come down pretty sharply, to be quite honest with you, coming into Monday's open. Let's look at NASDAQ. NASDAQ's puking because some of the bigger players have been puking pretty hard. So and NASDAQ and SPY are held up by just a few companies. So lower second standard deviation, this has built a range. So lower second is on the lows there at 14,420. 14,420 14,432 on the actual wick, but lower seconds at 14,420. It's likely to still remain in this posture, maybe a slight downward slope on that basis due to the size of this particular candle putting in another lower high. This is even going to be a technical break or a technical high. You know, you got your 3 candle structure. It's looking like closing below, but also it's going to close below the lows of this particular range. It's got, even the open of this bigger range. So that does bring into play that lower second. Very, very realistic that we see things come down there next week and possibly lower. But, again, weekly's getting there. 15,150 is, or 142, I should say, really far away. But, we saw the daily run up and we have the same scenario here. We have in this case, we got a bigger move to the upside. So this played from the lower second standard deviation, regained the lower first, move through the basis, close open, even a retest there, and then a move to the upper first, close rejection, open, hold it, and then a move to the upper second, and right back to the lower first. So you're either looking for it to try to swing the lower first on a close open, and that would be closing back above and or trading back above 14,650 in this case, or it's going to get continuation to the lower second here at 14,430 to test the wick lows there, maybe lower. Now, if it is going to be bullish, you want to see a 3 candle minimum structure being built on a low, and then we look for a possible bullish reset on momentum where it just kind of swings down like that and you get a nice bullish reset, and then that's your attempt for a reversal. We don't have that yet. That is what it would look like in a bullish reversal scenario. If it's going to be bearish, we're going to see momentum continue down. Of course, 1580 is the momentum pivot. And we'd be looking for this to close below the lower second, break the lows here, and just get continuation of trend to the downside. We'll come up with targets on Monday. But I wanted to kind of focus on what the setups are more than anything right now. Let's go ahead and look at the weekly. Yeah, the weekly again. Yeah, that fits. 14,400 area, maybe even swings lower. If it was going to do that, I'm looking at 14,2 to 300 down here at these wicks in this open. Fill some of the gaps that are down here. I mean, technically they're lower term time frame gaps, but gaps nonetheless. Yeah, so that'd be the next big area to look at, the downside if it is going to get continuation, but beware of a bullish reset on momentum and a hold of that lower second to lower first area, and or just a deviation of this low over here. The SPY chart's going to be looking pretty nasty as well. It's already down around that area at the lower second. So, eyes on. This is going to expand to the downside. It's already almost at the 420 weekly. I realistically would be looking like 415, 410, which to be fair is a fairly large move. But it's coming down. Yeah, 415 to 410. Yeah, that's the big area. So this high over here to this low. If it is going to get continuation, of course, it needs to close below the lower second and break the wick low on a close without getting a 3 candle deviation at minimum. And or a 2 candle railroad tie reversal. Same deal. 432, pretty far away at this point for where it is currently trading. Beware of a move in momentum like that if it does hold the lower second and the lows and or deviates. Otherwise, we look for a continuation of momentum to the downside, and then we're looking at this closing and getting re-expansion to the downside that breaks the lows, continuation of trend, volatility, ticking up, all that good stuff for the bearish side of the equation. Weekly, it is around the lower second, which is one of the reasons why I would say beware of a swing and deviation of the lows. It's so rare that this just closes below it, but if it's going to do it, this is the setup for closing below and getting continuation, because there is a bit of contraction on the weekly because of this consolidation coming off the upper second to lower second, move towards the basis and then back down. This is where, it's kind of make or break for SPY right now. It's either going to close below and get weekly expansion to the downside, which is pretty darn bearish, to at least go test, 412, that 410 to 415 area. But even lower into like the 405 to 400s. And then from there, we're looking at, retest of this pretty major low down here over time at like that 380, 390 to 400 area. So that's only, in my opinion, going to occur if we see closures below the lower second, that then get more aggressive expansion to the downside. Otherwise, this is playing in a weekly reversal area. So just be aware. Don't get too bearish until you see things really starting to actually break down. Because the reversal setup is still available for it. And that's going to do it for, the bulk of the analysis today. I will go ahead and turn on some tunes here. We'll look at the DGen chart, the 30-second chart for all you DGens out there. Yeah, I see some of you guys over there. Yeah, okay. So you guys have another two coming up this week, a Series 24 and a Series 57 that are going to be testing. Congratulations on completing your education, guys, and your internships. You're going to be getting those FINRA exams out of the way, and you're going to pass. I know it. You guys are doing great. So another two this coming week. Which day, guys? Which day? We've got a Monday. Okay. And and then a Wednesday. Cool. Well, hey guys, congratulations. I really do I really do think you guys are gonna have a lot of success. And you'll do just fine on those exams. Awesome. Congrats, guys. And then of course let me know what the results are. Yeah. Cool. All right, so let me go ahead and throw some tunes on, and then we'll let me peruse the various chats here. See if any. I see a lot of people again in YouTube that I guess YouTube is not a big place for chatters lately. Only got 2 or 3 that are chatting right now, but if you do want to chat, go ahead and just hit the subscribe button there. And then you can come in and chat. The only reason that I have chat available to subscribers only right now is because during the pre-streams I was having bots come in and spam the chats, and I'm the only person moderating it right now, so I had to do something to stop that. So if the spammers are gonna come in here to spam, they at least have to sub the channel for the time being. Of course, it costs you nothing to sub. Likes and notification bell, all that good stuff for the socials. Let's see. Yeah, all right. Let's go ahead and we'll start playing Highlands here. And we'll turn this back on. And let me see. So we've got a few other chats here. We're getting back into trying to get this Discord issue fixed, so that we can make a publicly available Discord. One of the issues, and I'm going to tell you guys this right now, we're a fairly small group of people. I don't have any paid products. All of my information is free. The indicator is free. Discord will also be free. Any educational product, anything educational that I put up on YouTube, obviously free, which there is going to be a series coming up pretty soon. So for those of you that are kind of hanging out in the kind of post-analysis portion here, there's going to be basics of trading coming up pretty soon. That is, your pure basics of trading. So your intro to trading, your trend, support and resistance, volatility, and then momentum, because trend, support and resistance, and volatility create trend, or create momentum rather. So those are your 4 key components of trading. I will get detailed, candle structure and all that kind of stuff. So I will explain it as if you have never, looked at a chart before, and or have just the basics of looking at this stuff. But that's gonna be coming up soon. And then there will be, my primary strategy that I show you all the time, which is the primary strategies, which is Bollinger Band strategy, which is a volatility based strategy combined with support and resistance. Obviously it encompasses trend, support and resistance, volatility, and momentum. So it encompasses all 4 of the key factors of trading. And then I will also have a dedicated video, might turn into 2 videos, we'll see, on the volume map. We didn't check in on the volume map today. We'll review it on Monday. It worked perfectly. So if you have it, that. Extend it out to the highs, because we have higher highs now. So pick out those high volume areas on your volume map and keep that particular map going. And then coming into, and this is important, coming into ETF launches, I'm going to start getting into options content. So, excuse me, if you are unfamiliar with options markets, my suggestion to get ready for what I'm going to be throwing out there pretty soon is, and I will eventually have educational materials and resources available to everyone, but we're going to be talking options a lot. So if you don't understand what options are, look, I know a lot of people hate on Investopedia, but go and just read their whole section on options, and that'll give you a good primer. You might not be fully up. You're not gonna be fully up to understanding all of it if you're brand new to it, but you'll understand the concepts at the minimum, and then you'll be prepared to ask questions, because the options markets are going to be the primary drivers of hedging in both directions when ETFs launch. And there is going to be a large liquidity pool in options markets, because you don't need to own the underlying asset, in this case shares of the ETF, to trade options, to bet against or for price going to the upside or downside. So there's going to be a lot of liquidity outside of just the liquidity for assets under management with all of these various companies that are launching, or looking to launch, I should say, spot Bitcoin ETFs. The beautiful thing about a spot Bitcoin ETF is, unlike a gold ETF, you could take delivery, or you can do a redemption of your ETF shares for the equivalent value of Bitcoin. So that does mean that it's going to be, there's going to be a fraction of people, I believe, that actually do that. There's the reason why spot ETF is so attractive to the market right now is because there's a lot of people that want to become participants but don't fully understand Bitcoin in Bitcoin custody. They just want to be involved as investors. So a spot Bitcoin ETF gives them the ability to not just be trading on futures paper, but to also have access to, eventually, after they learn the ins and outs of, holding their own Bitcoin and or getting custodial services that are maybe insured and can be insured up to the value of the Bitcoin that they're going to hold, then they can go and redeem that and have those custodial services hold it for them, and or they can learn to use some of the products for cold storage that are out there now. This gives them time to learn the markets and flexibility. And you also have to understand that when you have an option or when you have a share of a company, or in this case something like a commodity, like what Bitcoin is being classified as, and you have the ability for redemption, you're going to see a lot of portfolios that will also take money out against those. So you do get rehypothecation of funds. but it's not rehypothecation directly of Bitcoin. Like what happened with FTX, where they're rehypothecating customer funds for their own trading and filling in balance sheets and paying off politicians. Instead, the rehypothecation is paper on top of that particular position, which does mean that if they don't pay it, they got to sell it for whatever the value is. And typically in those scenarios, they can take up to 50% of their portfolio as hedged against that position. And that it kind of varies. It depends on, where the position is being held, which brokerage firm it is, and like all that kind of stuff. But, that it can still be levered. And on top of levering that, if you're going to lever it and you think that there is the possibility that it could go down to your liquidation price, you can take an option against it. And so people will have the ability to have access to the market of Bitcoin, have the access to redeem for the underlying asset, which is very hard to do with gold, unless you are going to have a third-party custodian hold it for you. But with Bitcoin, you can hold it yourself very easily once they learn about it. But it also gives them the options platform at all of these brokerages to hedge against their position in the ETF. So if I buy, whatever they open those share prices at, however much Bitcoin it's going to be worth, each share is going to be worth of the ETFs. Let's say they're doing, their average pricing at around what current value would be, like a $500 or something. I don't know. It's a fraction of the Bitcoin, but you get sats that you could redeem per share. I don't know what their share arrangement's going to look like. It could be a whole Bitcoin, right? You buy one share, it's $30,000 or whatever it is, right? $29,500. I don't think that's going to be the way that they do it, but we'll see. But the fact of the matter is you can hedge against that entire position in options. So if I buy the underlying asset, this being the ETF, which gives me access to redemption of real Bitcoin, I can hedge against that on the other side with options. And I can move those options around, and those options contracts I could pay for and let go of, and that's like my insurance. And you pay a fraction if you are pay a fraction of what it would cost to hedge in other ways. If you're doing your options correctly. And I think the options markets are going to be a huge driver of Bitcoin's future. And it's going to open up a whole new world for you guys as investors and traders. So understanding options is going to be vital for your survival. I do think that a lot of these leveraged exchanges, while they will still be around, will be a fraction of the liquidity that is in the market. So, and I think they're going to eventually be pushed out and or have to go and become fully legal entities that list on exchange on the brokerage exchanges themselves. So, just keep that all in mind. I don't see too many questions. These guys over here are wrapping up end of day stuff, coming into market close. And then anybody staying there for post market? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Jimmy, if they're going to go wrap things up, go ahead and can you take care of that stream for me? I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much. Cool. So it's just, it'll be me and you guys on YouTube here. Thanks, guys. You have a great weekend over there. Yeah. So, I don't see any questions over here. Cheryl says, yep. Thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate it. Hi, Roka. I know there's a few other you guys here listening in, so I do hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. I'm going to get out of here if there's no real questions for any of this stuff. Just staring at Sol, ready for the weekend. Awesome. Well, the market's going to move as Bitcoin does in terms of USD value. Watch those BTC pairs, because I think some of them are getting into some bouncy areas. So you might be looking at a little bit of cooling. If Bitcoin starts to cool down, we might be looking at a little boost in alts here pretty soon. We'll investigate that on Monday, because I think they're on a weekly scale is where I was kind of observing that they're getting to some pretty low levels. Bitcoin dominance is still pushing pretty hard, but is likely to, have some shorter term time frame pullbacks. Alts pump versus USD when Bitcoin pumps versus USD in most cases, just not quite as much. And we might just see Bitcoin take a break and alts get picked up. We'll look at that on Monday for a little bit longer term as well, as ETH was not looking very good coming into today, but I think it was getting to a pretty bouncy area. We did discuss this on Wednesday, if I remember correctly. Might have been, it was Monday or Wednesday, but yeah, no, it got a nice bounce on the daily. So, it was looking kind of sick coming into Wednesday, but got a nice bounce, Thursday into today. So, bouncy area. Like I said, as long as it's above 15, I was looking fine. So, and I suspect ETH BTC it's going to continue to drop, but I think it's getting very close to some reversal areas. We'll discuss this. It's not ready just yet, in my opinion, but we'll discuss this on Monday. Might be a good time to start looking into alts, especially if Bitcoin has any kind of a wider pullback, where alts also pull back with it. So, but until then, as long as Bitcoin's up, USD pairs are going to be up on alts. And that is going to do it for me today. You guys have a wonderful one again. And again, stay safe no matter where you are in the world, please. It's getting crazy out there. It's only going to get crazier. So make sure you're staying safe and trading safe, right? Lower that leverage. And then that will allow me to talk to you again on Monday. All right. Take care, guys and gals. Appreciate you hanging out. Landy out.